Yes, hello everyone. Merry Christmas. Actually, this video could be a gift in a way for some people that are suffering and are ready for it. Christmas gift. So this is Mihail Giu and Scott Kiloby. Welcome, Scott. Scott is the spiritual teacher and the writer of many books and developer of this Kiloby inquiry, KI inquiry modality, which is a awareness-based spiritual somatic investigation modality. And since I met you, before I met you, I gravitated towards your work and working with clients. I was just listening and listening together with Eckhart Tolle and Rupert Spira and Muji and other people, and I was listening and listening to your stuff, and I gravitated more towards it. And then I work with clients as a somatic therapist, and then I started to apply it more with clients. A few years passed. I started to connect to you in person, started to be your client. I started to do sessions with you, and then I started to learn the method from you. So in this a few years span, I started to use this method more and more. I would say it's my primary method. And then I'm raving about it in groups and stuff like that. So although you're not paying me to do that, I just anyway. And some people ask me, people that come to me, they ask me, hey man, so why are you doing this? Why do you really find that this KI is most effective and like the best to deal with suffering and subconscious programs? They asked me twice, even last week. So with all humility, but realness, I'm like, yeah. So, without, I guess, yeah. If we can speak a little bit, I can speak and you can speak about it. What do you like about this method? And what do I like about this method, and why it happens that it is so effective? Yeah, why it happens that it's so effective?
Well, obviously I wouldn't talk about something that didn't work best for me, so if somebody were asked me that, of course I think this works best. That's why I'm talking about it. We could go into all the different points, but we've said all that in the videos, like all the different reasons. I guess if I were to distill it down to like a couple of reasons, it would be that certain things just weren't, I wasn't able to process them with other modalities. I just couldn't reach them. I didn't even know that they were there. Like repression, I didn't know it was there. Even if I knew that there was trauma there, I just couldn't reach it with some of the other ones. So this one allowed me to reach areas that I couldn't reach before: shame, repression, other things. And of course, then if it helps you in that way, you're going to have some allegiance to something that helps you. But through the years, I've kind of seen that this is the way it works. Like, we developed living inquiries and people were very attracted to that, saying like, that's a sharp knife compared to the plastic knife of other. But what I would say to people is that even that's going to evolve, and it did. So what's a sharp knife today becomes a plastic knife tomorrow, and we evolve. But I even evolve. So even the tools that I'm using now, I'm not really particularly wedded to, because I know that this evolves, and if it evolves into something else.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, this is the best we have.
Yeah, I guess from my end, trying to awaken or trying to heal myself, I found some things that were very helpful. Like I found this Hakomi, which was mindfulness-based, awareness-based somatic psychotherapy, which was, so I like that. I found that very helpful for me. I found these teachings of non-duality very helpful to me, which would be, although they are not therapies, it can be more like transpersonal psychology. And I found, honestly, psychedelic assisted psychotherapy very helpful on me, to the point that it brought up issues and skeletons from the basement I didn't know I have. So I was, somehow combining all of these three things. And so when I found KI, yeah, I could see that it has so many components. So basically there's this awareness-based piece, which is not just talking, like, how are you doing? Oh, I'm so sorry this happened to you, or tell me more about this feeling. So it's not just cognitive therapy. So it's this looking at the subconscious from a state of presence, from a state of being mindful and watching phenomena, stuff that happened in the past, but it's here now in the form of sensation, image, memory, voice in my head. So I'm watching it. So this awareness-based piece, eyes closed, going inside, I found this very effective. Also, I like that KI, it is a non-dual awareness-based modality. So it's, although we don't focus so much on it, you know, don't need a lot of theory at the beginning, but ultimately it's from this perspective. And also I like that also it has this organicity called in Hakomi, mind, body, spirit as one. So we're not just dealing with the thought part, with the system of thoughts and all of this. It's not just with the contractions and pain in the body. It's like, it has very sharp technology to mine out these files, you know, and unpack them. These things which are hidden, that's the tricky part, is that not just things that are on the surface, but might be on the surface just a little bit, and underneath the water, there's a lot. So it has a way to unpack all of this slowly, little by little in awareness, which actually creates safety in a way. It's inbuilt. It has all kind of technology that you are not getting flooded, or you are not getting freaking out. There's too much disturbing content. And if the client freaks out, there are ways to pull it back and titrate, and it's be safe for dealing with trauma. Yeah, I like that. You know, it deals with trauma, basically. I was going to non-duality satsangs, teachers, and I was leaving my trauma behind. And I was getting the message that, well, yeah, well, you know, it's not you. So why do you focus on it, on this problem? Why don't you be what you are, that which is aware? So that was a big help for me, that pointer, but at some point I was blocked. So it's wonderful to encounter this like a non-dual based modality that addresses the consciousness aspect and the trauma aspect, the body. I'll keep going, I guess, a little bit, you know, because I'm on a roll here. I like the fact that it has this, you know, this concept, which is, I guess, the beginning when start working KI, to identify one's deficiency stories. Yeah, this kind of so-called limiting beliefs, which is like limiting beliefs, but it has body component, pain body, basically mental pain body, emotional pain body. So yeah, it helps with someone that has, let's say, self-esteem issues, because they call in psychotherapy self-esteem, lack of self-worth. Somebody has anxiety, somebody has depression, somebody has PTSD, somebody has addiction. Oh yeah, I like about your model that it has a very cutting edge approach on addiction, not focusing on the problematic behavior, but identifying the suffering that drive the problematic behavior. Yeah. So if you were to look at it from the outside, I think there are some other aspects I didn't speak about that you have a lot of experience that this method helped you with. I guess about the repression, the chronic pain.
The thing is you said it, it feels, or I said it, it's, this work helps discover things you can't see. And people are almost always surprised. Before they come, they don't know that all that stuff isn't seen. And then KI has a way of stirring it up. And then that's exactly what happened for me and why I like it so much, because it stirred things up that I couldn't reach. I mean, the shame is one thing. These are big topics, though, just to brush by them. Like, shame's a big topic, but I couldn't reach it before that because I couldn't make it conscious because it was so embedded. in my personality, and I always say, like, in reality, shame is just embedded into our life so much that we don't even recognize it anymore. It's everywhere. And so how do you reach that? So I went for years,
Hmm.
like in addiction, and not being able to reach shame, not being able to really bring it up. So I'd feel it and I'd find myself hiding, for example. I'd see the effects of it, but I couldn't see the programs. And it wasn't until we started, using KI that I could truly conjure up these deep layers of thoughts going all the way back to childhood about shame. And so that was amazing. And then so that was the first area that I went into, was the shame. And I was really surprised at how much it unearthed. It transformed so much. Then I became interested in these other areas. It was like, well, what else? If
Mhm.
that's not me, what else is here? Just being open. And then I know I've told this story before, but shortly after that, the chronic pain amped up. That was connected to anger, repression, again, stuff that I couldn't see. That's the real value of this work for me, is just showing me things that I can't see. And I
Mhm.
think that's the value for other people. That really is the value. Now, I want to talk about something here. What I like about the work is how it always evolves,
Mhm.
and it's evolving to meet the needs of real people on the path. And so we're starting to focus even more on trauma and repression now, and it's all coming into focus much
Mhm.
more because I'm over here reading the science. Have been for years. Emotional repression, trauma drives addiction, but you can't really connect it all up until you go into inquiry. And then just lately being able to connect it up so well, because it's like, so basically repression and trauma means contraction, means addiction. It's just
Mhm.
like, and it's all there. So when you go into inquiry, you can literally pull up the traumatic memories, developmental or otherwise, and see the responses that you have to them, the words, the meaning that responded to the trauma. So there's your trauma. And you can see that one of the trauma responses is, I'm deficient. That's a response to the trauma.
Mhm.
So it's all there for you. You don't even need science. It's literally right there. And then connected to the same sensation are repressions.
Mhm.
So there's the repression, there's the trauma, there's the contraction, there's the addiction. It's so mapped out for you with this work. That's so helpful, because
Yeah.
before, like, it's like shooting in the dark. It's like, yeah, I have this feeling in my body, but I don't know what to do with it or what it's about. And it wants beer, or it wants weed every day or something. And
Mhm.
it's not even about addiction. Many people don't have addictions. It's just like you have this contraction or this thing, some scar or whatever, and you can't do anything with it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing you can do with it until you start learning how to bring up the hidden stuff.
Yeah. So I think these two aspects you last mentioned, I think it was recently, or you put a Freud quote recently, and he was speaking straight up, I don't know, 130 years ago or something, that an emotion is not expressed or something is going to turn sour, becomes toxic in some way, in some behavior. So it was known by the great grandfather, and then, but somehow in the psychotherapy I studied, it doesn't show up at all. They don't speak about it, this repression. And then, so it seems like it's correlated to, so this aspect of repression to development of all kind of diseases, diagnosis, mysterious chronic pains, and then just by exploring this repression and lifting it, yeah, so some great breakthroughs in terms of healing pain, healing diagnosis, which is like very super great Christmas gift for somebody to encounter this. And actually also, they sometimes there are some teachings, okay, well, all of this is repressed, let's get the feeling out, so here, put some loud music, breathe, hit with a baseball bat these things, and then get it out, and then some people get it out cathartically for a little bit, but what you discovered is that it's hard to get it out because you don't even know you have it. So the repression is very buried deep in the vaults, and this method has a way to not just to bring up the pent up emotions, but to bring up that which keeps up everything suppressed, and exploring that safely. I like that. um, and what I like about it and why I am using it so much is that, I mean, it's ultimately effective to do on your own. And actually, even if you have sessions with you, a session with a KI facilitator, and it's helpful to have a few sessions, 4 sessions, 5 sessions, 20 sessions. But then there's this homework, like, hey, go home, take these inquiries, which is like almost like a deprogramming programs. Take them home and run them, practice them in a certain way. You are taught how to do it, even from, let's say, 3rd session or 2nd session. Can give the client homework, and then he can take the healing a little bit in his own hands, and depending if he's ready or not, whatever degree of, it's kind of doing something about it yourself and learning how to self-facilitate ultimately. And also just having a peer partner who doesn't have to be a therapist, just witnessing your process. I found that extremely helpful. And also, let's say, last thing we are here, not many people know, but you put a lot of videos on YouTube, then you start to feel like, man, this is getting too technical here, and I don't know it's for everybody, and this is too sharp. It might bring up some cans of worms for people who are not ready. So you started to pull up from YouTube and go into this private Facebook for people doing the work. And then you basically launch this amazing platform that I really want all the people that I work with to know. Basically, it's a whole website. And yeah, it's a whole website, which kind of looks like Facebook, but it's not Facebook, but it has all the things you can post, you can post videos, you can post audios, you can post photos. You have people interacting with each other, like probably hundreds of people doing the work, tens and tens of facilitators being there, which is like incredibly affordable, basically free, I would say. And basically where you are coming there, you have free meetings every day. You are working with people. People can share their deepest, shameful, darkest secrets. And it's like, wow, I didn't know it's possible. You are sharing your skeletons and processing, teaching how to process. You are troubleshooting people. There are other facilitators coming there. There's Dan. There's all the subsections about chronic pain, about addiction, about this. It's like a whole family. Like, I have this material that I'm alone and stuff. I'm alone in the world, my deficiency story core program. It's very hard to maintain it when there's like a whole fucking family there doing this serious work. So I just want people to know. So if somebody is really, they have suffering and they are ready, there's some amazing ship that you can kind of, everything is there ready for you. I love that. I wish you a Merry Christmas and many decades, so you live long and keep expanding the ship, and I can see it growing. Wonderful.
Thank you for that, because I've been really talking about the members area. It's nice for somebody else to talk about it and say how.
You want to say something about it? I mean, it's from your side. It's probably the most fun, super fun.
Oh, this is the most fun thing I've ever done with this work, because I love to interact with people, and I love watching people light up as they get insight and they go deeper and they come back knowing that something is possible now that wasn't possible before, and they're curious and intrigued and interested. And that just gets my juices flowing. I couldn't be happier. There's no other thing I'd want to be doing than what I'm doing right now. So that's just personal note there.
Yeah.
Well, let me go back on some of these things. This is somewhat to it, but
hey, can I say something about the platform? We will go back. Yeah. So also you are training, you have trained even before the platform, you trained, I don't know, many facilitators. I don't know how many, and also many are very good. You certify them, and they are, whether they are therapists or not, it doesn't matter. Basically, what I found out is that, I'm usually full as a therapist. I wish I had a clone, a Mihai clone, or 2 Mihai clones, and we can do the work together. It's not there yet. So I have people for referrals. I'm like, man, I don't know any therapist that I can recommend you right now, but how about I know some KI facilitators.
Yeah.
So they are, it's not just you. You are now working with people, but you are trained many people who are very good at it.
Yeah.
And so also I'm doing this KI module, and I can't, I think it would be nice for those people who are doing the group with me to have some sessions with someone. I cannot have sessions with everybody. I realized, oh, I know a bunch of people. I can send them to do some KI with them. So you can also learn this method. I mean, whoever's listening, you can learn this method. I mean, for me as a therapist, it's like it just enhanced my chops, as they call it, amazingly. And if you are not a therapist, it's still very, very useful. So yeah, I'm just enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, well, so I think the forum idea probably started years ago when I started seeing people go to satsang or retreat, and so they'd have some breakthroughs or clarity, and then like 3 or 4 days later, going back into life, they didn't have the teacher there anymore. The contractions would come back, and so then it was like, well, there's something with that model that doesn't support people because you've got a lot of like really good experiential work happening now, and then you've got nothing happening. The teacher's gone. So it
Yeah.
seemed like if you could just support people more regularly, first of all, and stop just coming into their lives in these, these moments. But more than
KI
that,
Sangha, KI Sangha.
yeah, right. But more than that, this particular work, people need support in it. It's not just non-dual awareness. There's somatic work, and having that support is helpful. I knew that even when I was doing it with Dan back in the day when we were, that bond that we created and the magic that happened when 2 or more people get together around this, really 2 people, is amazing. And so we wanted to spread that. So the idea with the forum is not just a lot of facilitators, but people learning how to support each other, learning the work, doing peer support. And there's a bonding that happens. Like people connect that way. You can see on the forum, people are expressing their music and their art now, because we're part of it's coming out of repression, like just be myself. So that's the kind of forum that we want to have. Let everybody be what you are, how you show up. But okay, so here's something. The other day I did a video and I was talking about how repression it's under the radar. So you could be actually living in awareness and still be repressing. And that's hard for people to understand. But I'm just telling you, for those listening, it definitely happens. And there was this guy who said on a comment, he said, this sort of standard non-dual speech that doesn't have any investigation with it. It's conclusory. He said,
like what?
He said, in non-conceptual awareness, there's no one there to repress.
Bullshit.
That sounds good. That is not what I find at all. It just sounds good. It sounds very enlightened, but it's not the case because, in fact, not only is that not the case, but in sometimes the practice of coming back to non-conceptual awareness can strengthen the repression. It's not just that there's no one there to repress, it can strengthen it because it's below the radar. It's not operating on the conscious level. So when you're quiet-minded, it's still operating.
Yeah. Whatever generates thoughts in us, whatever that is, someone, no one, that is generating repression, whatever. Consciousness is repressing. Universal, the Tao is repressing because it needed to repress because to survive.
Yes.
It keeps going now until the Tao realizes that, oh, I should actually unrepress now.
Yeah, good way of saying it, yes. So there's that we have to overcome, because you're a great facilitator too. You didn't mention that, but those of us who talk about this work, we need to be saying things like that no, presence that doesn't mean that there's no one there to repress. And that kind of information is not very helpful for people.
Yeah.
That because you can see how just hearing that people would say, oh yeah, that feels true, but it isn't an experience true.
Yeah.
So we speak in order to be heard over the voices that are saying otherwise.
Yeah, also this thing that, oh, if you're meditating, if you're witnessing, just stay in awareness and resting in the here and now, witness and allow all of this, allow them, then they will dissolve. They will just, the light of awareness will dissolve them. It does dissolve many, but some, they are not dissolved because they are not coming up. So that is a fallacy also.
There's a lot of misunderstandings around this. Like someone said to me the other day, they said, look, I'm starting to acknowledge my anger more. by sitting in meditation. And I thought, well, okay, but I'm not even talking about anger that's acknowledged. I'm talking about anger that's really repressed and caught up in a contraction. So this wouldn't be
Yeah.
something that you feel as anger. So whatever you're acknowledging in meditation is not what I'm talking about. That's on the surface. So that's
Mhm.
great. Acknowledge that, be with that.
Mhm.
What I'm talking about is something, under that, where
Mhm.
the mind has already decided that it has to hold back. That's just one of those misunderstandings that we have to speak about, because people will continue to say things like that as if their meditation practice is getting to unconscious trauma and repression when it isn't.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then the whole thing about dancing and yelling at pillows or screaming into pillows, I used to do all that. And what I recognize is that I can only get as angry as my conditioning allows.
Mhm.
So I even see this in session where it's like I'll invite someone to get angry as they're doing repression work. And even though the person is not there, they can't voice it. It's like they can't. They feel impotent. And so that's what you find is if you're repressing, you're only going to be able to express what's available to you. So what I'm saying to people is do inquiry on the conditioning that won't allow you to. And then as you go along, express as the conditioning lightens up, start to be able to express and feel.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of people doing that practice of just yelling pillows. And my word to them is, I'm still talking about something underneath that,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
that's still something that's coming up. I'm talking about what's under that isn't coming up.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
so it's like there's the feeling, and but there's the program that says, "Oh, uh, be be appropriate, or be nice, or like don't rock the boat." So all of these things that keep the things pent up. Be strong, being strong. I can't show this feeling. I have to choke
yeah,
it. Stuff like that, which is subconscious. So actually, with KI, you bring it to see the repression, just by witnessing the repression, the repression barrier there, it starts
mhm,
to break down, and the dam starts to come up.
yes. And so the thing is you and I talk about anger repression because that was our path. We both repress that. But there are definitely people out there that don't have that as their main repression. And I don't want to get those people to hear as if this is only about anger repression,
Yes.
because there are definitely people who can get angry very easily but have trouble being vulnerable. The more vulnerable emotions like hurt and shame, that's what's repressed. So they have to hear it from a different place if they hear
Yeah.
about repression, because they might go into anger repression when that's not the issue. The issue is they can't
Yeah.
express hurt, sadness to
Yeah.
people.
As I got into this repression work with you, I thought that, oh, I'm comfortable with sadness. Sadness is, I can go there. But soon I realized, no, I have grief repression. It comes a little bit and then good. Look in my life. Anyway, so grief repression, fear repression, all this is like I can't be myself, in all this new agey and even regular psychology is to be authentic. This will be theoretical, philosophical, if one doesn't look at all these things that prevents us from being authentic.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot to be said about that, about how the new age spirituality will start to come from the mind sometimes and not deconstructing the
Yeah,
mechanism there.
yeah.
Well, yeah. But I guess what the last thing I want to say about what you said is that I started to realize when I was doing these YouTube videos is that this work isn't for everyone right now.
Hmm.
So, when we go to this members forum, these folks they're uh they're jamming on this. You know what I mean? Like what's the word that you use as a musician now?
Riff, how we call
Riffing.
that?
They're,
Riffing. Yeah,
yeah, they're riffing and they're going deep. So some people when they come, they're just not ready to riff yet. And so
yeah.
have to sit back and listen to see if this is something they want to do. So that's fine. Those people are there. But there's another group of people who may not be open to this at all, would just argue with it.
Hmm.
And that's fine. But we're over here
Hmm.
jamming. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah, you go and play that song somewhere else. We're playing this song. You don't have to come here and buy into
yeah,
it, but let us jam. We're jamming
yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm coming back to just meeting these people. Like I have some friends that I haven't never met in person. They're in Europe, in other countries, and I feel very close to them just because I witness their realness. They're spilling their subconscious potatoes, being and processing. And then I started to develop this friendship with some people where I share, like, not many people at all know so much intimate things about me than some of these people that I never met in person. So I really appreciate that. Like, we all long for, they say the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, but it is meaningful connection. So this virtual KI Sangha, yeah, offers this really deep, meaningful connection. And it's amazing to see people like so passionate talking about deep, dark stuff that they are unpacking, and they are getting lighter. That's the thing, it kind of works. They are more freer, you know?
That's something to talk about there is, I think in certain spiritual circles, you're not allowed to talk about certain things, even if it's not own rule. It might not be like an explicit rule, but it's like a norm. When you're there, you don't riff on your anger, for example. You don't go off on, and you don't talk about your sexual practices necessarily. But here, everybody's allowed to share everything. And that's what makes people feel comfortable, because it's the one place that you can go where it's like everybody's sharing that. So you don't stand out and you're just being honest like everybody else. And there's something about sharing openly and honestly that helps the riffing. I don't know how to say it, but context gets the fire started in people, and talking about it helps them to keep the fire started or going. So it ends up being fun. I don't know if you've recognized that. Yeah, it's hard work, but there's such a payoff in it. Like, you feel so much better. I don't know how to say it. My body feels so much better.
Yeah, and then you are the fire starter. I mean, you were on YouTube talking about, like, very open and real, very open, vulnerable, real, normal. Then I met you in person. You are the most non-guru that I've ever met. And like with a body, I could be like with a body, like from the first day I met you. So this is infusing into the platform. It's very important, and I appreciate that. Yeah. Let's see, I had some final thoughts here, not to make this too long. Oh yeah, I did this this module with some new people talking about KI, and so I intentionally didn't go too much in non-dual awareness. I didn't talk about presence too much. We did some basic practices because, this modality, you can't do it from the regular mental state. So it's good to drop in first and become more present, and in order to explore this. So, but anyway, oh yeah, that's the idea. What I like about this method is that it's very versatile, and it can help somebody who was on an enlightenment, non-duality path for many decades and it got stuck without processing their deepest wounds. It can help with that a lot in the so-called embodiment, people who already had realization about their true self, but they are oscillating, they're not stable in the piece. So it really helps with that. You have a lot of experience with this. But what we found, both of us, is that it helps with people who were not interested in Buddhahood, and they were just having suffering, addiction, anxiety. So it helps with that somehow equally. Somehow you don't have to have a more advanced KI and then a beginner KI. It's just, it works for both.
Yeah.
And also, so I did this group recently, and there was this guy who I didn't know, but he was coming from, like, he was a monk, he was a ex-military monk, Dzogchen, all kind of non-duality. And then he told me at the break, like, dude, this is like, I can see that it's not, all these teachings that I studied, it's all in there. I was like, oh, great. I like that.
I think this is a good point to leave people. This is for the folks out there that are listening who are seekers. So if you hear this, because when you're a seeker, and if you're really focused on the awareness recognition, you might want to dismiss what we're saying, right? Because you think, well, the point is to recognize my true nature. The point is not to process all this stuff. But the awareness recognition and the embodiment are intrinsically tied together, in the sense that if you look back at why you go back to therapy, back to satsang, it's not just that you're seeking truth, it's that you're suffering. And if you come down to it, your suffering is somatic. Like there's something in your body that feels uncomfortable. And from that, there might be depression or addiction or anxiety or PTSD, but it all kind of boils down to the body. And so trauma and repression are involved in that, and they get in the way of abiding because the body feels uncomfortable. So people who are dismissing this don't recognize that it actually helps with the awareness recognition.
Mhm.
Body remains contracted. You'll continue to go to satsang and therapy retreats, thinking that somehow, somewhere, that thing is just going to dissolve and you're going to be,
Mhm.
but it doesn't. If it doesn't, then you're ignoring the trauma and the repression, thinking that I'm just interested in awareness recognition. Don't want to do any of that. Meanwhile, that's in your body making
Mhm.
awareness, abiding difficult.
Mhm.
So I don't see why we even really make a strong distinction between the two because they're so connected. And I think that
Yeah,
if people could hear it that way, they might be open to this more. If they understood this is getting in the way of their abiding.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was very much benefited a lot from this direct path, Rupert Spira, Francis Lucille, Laura Lucille. Um, and then somehow I found your work and I started to be like, whoa, wait a minute, because I wasn't addressing all my personal needs, unresolved issues. So I started to do a little bit of shadow boxing, as you call it, realizing, well, that's not complete and that's not going to help me fully. I started to go more like AI, and things get more untangled, and some of the stuff become less mysterious. And then I'm going back there. I listened yesterday some guided meditation, some satsang with Francis, and I was like, yes. Somehow I could go back there and appreciate it, and also I could see that he wanted me to, Francis was saying, welcome this completely, this sense of lack, this discomfort, let it devour you, let it eat you up, see what happens, give it all the space. Well, I couldn't do it before. I couldn't. It was too much somehow. Some of it wouldn't even come up. So by learning KI, I am much more qualified and able to let that sense of separation that was repressed and I was trying to escape, to let it come up fully and devour me and see that it can't, and that I am that which is aware of it. He's right, so I can see that you don't have to abandon all whatever spiritual non-dual pointer practices we had. This is more like to be thorough on all levels.
When you say to someone, when people say to someone, just allow this intense sensation, it sounds good, but it doesn't pay attention to trauma, because with trauma,
Yeah,
it's so scary for people. Like that's scary to sit
yeah,
there and, because it feels like you're going to die. It feels like annihilation, or worse. It feels like
yeah.
going to go crazy or mad. And so the mind will just stop that from happening. So it's unfortunate because just a little bit of deconstructing could help that come up. But if you don't deconstruct it, if you stick with the non-dual message, like that's just an arising in awareness, then it stays exactly as it is. And that's what's scary. And I can see when you were all those years, I can imagine sitting with that thing in your stomach. And the
Mhm.
teachers are saying, just open to that. It's like, yeah,
Mhm.
no, because it's so painful or scary, and the system can't, because there's so much there. But just a little bit of deconstructing, that's all we did, is deconstruct that a little bit or a
Mhm.
lot. And then
Mhm.
that's the
Yeah.
difference.
All right, so let's keep this short. So I guess people know that there's this platform. I'm going to put the link there for this KI members platform. Scott is going to come back here in March in my area, California, Nevada City, Grass Valley. We are going to do another training together. Scott is doing another training with Dan McClintock, which I think it's important to give credit to. It's like Dan and Scott, they co-developed this method. And you guys are going to do some retreat focusing on working with addiction according to the new model of recovery sometime soon, right?
Yeah, March, I think it's in North Carolina.
March, yeah. Also, you are training people. This is an awesome continued education for therapists or psychologists or anybody who wants to work with people or themselves. And I know other people trained by you, experienced facilitators, they are doing other trainings. So that's a lot of offerings here.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, Scott. Thank you. I will stop this one.